Hey everyone, so it's been a while since we've done a video. That seems to be the theme lately here in the last couple of months. Uh, we now have a working version of 1604, MaaS 2.x, and Juju 2.x using the Conjure-up feature. I have to say, I think it's now more than ever easier to get landscape up and running and get the installer rolling. Uh, a big thanks to everybody at Canonical that has helped me along the way, especially Adam over there fixing bugs and things like that. He has done a great job, ran on a lot of things for me to get this thing up and running. There are a few differences in between 1404 and 1604. This video will be 1604. I might try to actually go back and do a 1404 just for reference to see if it works. But this will be 1604 and everything 2.0, MaaS and Juju. We're going to do the first part, and then we'll come back and do the second part in another video. I haven't done anything except install 1604, fresh copy. I haven't even changed the network settings or logged into it yet. The install for 1604 is pretty basic. It's just like 1404. There's not a lot of difference there. So you shouldn't have any problems with that. There's already other videos for that. While we get started here, so I know that DHCP grabbed that server to 245. It always does with that MAC address, so we'll go ahead and get logged in there and get our network stuff changed around. While we're doing this, I wanted to bring up something. I might try in the next couple of months using my personal YouTube account to start posting some videos and making a channel. Maybe actually doing some live action stuff. Where you get to see me on camera. But I've been doing a lot of 3D printing and building things and creating different kinds of stuff. So we'll still do the OpenStack cloud stuff, but we're going to do kind of a general in the basement channel, post a few videos. So you might check that out in the next, like I say, probably a couple of months when I get around to making those videos. But do that. And I also have a couple more cloud videos that are going to come out. So stay tuned for that. So let's get started with this build. We're at the old address. We've got a lot of updates to do. I did have a hard time, just to tell you guys, I had a hard time with the USB install, so I ended up burning the 1604 to a CD and installed it that way. It was just, it just seemed easier. I don't know what's going on with that USB install, but I couldn't get it to work. So if you can't get that to work, try a CD. Let's change around the network. Now, first thing you're going to notice, and we've talked about this before, I'm sure, 1604 is changing the way it names the interfaces. So now instead of an ETH1, ETH0, we have these ENS33s and ENP3S1s. I think that's based on firmware version or type of card or something. I'm not sure exactly why it names them that way. The names do work. We just changed the file. I've heard that some people if they go back to the ETH0, ETH1 configuration, it works better. The installs work better. Some things work better. I have not ran into that issue, but there is a procedure out there to change grub and to change these IF names if you need to. So that's that. Let's get the network stood up here. And in this video, I mean, there'll be a lot of fast forward while things install because most of it is waiting, really. Things have gotten quite a bit simpler, I would say. So just delete all this stuff. And most of the stuff out on the OpenStack basement site still applies. So we're going to pop that open so we can grab some of our configuration files. And we'll also just take a general look at the Ubuntu suggested install. So you can go ahead and still copy this file. We just have to change the interface names from the old value to the new value. We're going to use pretty much the same ENS. We're going to use pretty much the same settings, except I'm going to change the range for the private network, but that's not a big deal. You can go ahead and we're going to change the private interface to be the gateway number, .1. So down here, I'm just going to make this .1. And you'll see why we're going to do that here in a little bit. It just the way that ENP3S1 is the other one. The way that the new installer uses the IPs, it makes a little more sense to lower it down to 1 because you can't jump over that gateway if it's 100. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. So we've made these changes. Let's save it and let's go ahead and reboot. Okay, the reboot should be done by now. We can close this one and open up from the new IP. Okay, and as with every install and anything we do with Linux, we need to upgrade first. This version that I installed the 1604 is a couple months old, so it will need some updates. So do your apt update and apt upgrade. Okay, the first wave of upgrades is complete. Probably need a reboot, but we'll take care of that in a minute. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the install site because it wasn't updated for a long time. And it does have some new stuff on there. So Openstack, let's install Openstack, build your own, and it gives you some requirements. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So they want you to update, and then they jump right into installing MaaS. Again, so I just want you guys to know that the network has not changed any, right? So we still got the MaaS server, we still got ETH0, ETH1. They're named something different. We're just going to switches, though. I mean, there's nothing specific about these switches. 2 different switches. One goes to the public. One goes to the private. All the nodes are plugged into the private. One of the nodes is plugged into the public side. It has two NIC cards. One of these has a redundant NIC card that goes to that same private network. So there's nothing special about the hardware, or nothing has changed. This is just like the other builds. Just putting that out there. So that's what all this is explaining, right? So they go straight into installing MaaS. First thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the interfaces look good. We've got the correct IPs. That's our public, and this is our private. That looks good to me. So let's go ahead and install MaaS. Okay, MaaS is done installing. So now it's okay. We can go ahead and create this admin. The admin can be whatever you want. Okay, import SSH keys. If you know what you're doing, you can go through that guide and do it here. I would rather just hit enter and import it manually through the GUI. We'll see that here in just a minute. So just hit enter on that one. Okay, admin has been created. Let's go ahead and reboot. Okay, reboot's done. Let's get back in. Okay, next thing they're going to want you to do, so that's good. So we created the admin. That'll get the reboot will get our updates going. They want you to install Snap, or they want you to install Conjure-up via Snap. Snap is it's kind of like apt, where it's just a way to install things. Snap, they use it a lot in containers, but it's a quick way to install something with options at a specific location. It's a quicker way to get things installed. They want you to snap install Conjure-up with this classic option. That's the version that's currently working with the autopilot. So it's just like installing something. If you were to do apt Conjure-up or install Conjure-up, that's not the version that's going to work. You can do it, but it's not going to work. So snap install this. You have to use sudo. And it's going to download and do a few things. Okay. It has installed Conjure-up. So I've noticed after you do Conjure-up and maybe after you run Snap, I'm not sure, but go ahead and do another update and upgrade, because I want to say that it finds a couple more things, yeah, after you do that Conjure-up. So go ahead and upgrade again. We just want to have the newest versions to make sure everything works. So yeah, it's doing some LXC upgrades. And let's reboot one more time just to be safe. Reboot should be done by now. I've noticed 1604 reboots a little slower. We're back. Okay, now we're updated. We've got MaaS installed. We're pretty much ready to go. We've got a user ID, so let's go ahead and pop the MaaS GUI open and get it set up. That's a lot of this stuff up here. It's going to give you a rundown of the stuff that we're going to do. So log in. Now it's going to ask you a couple questions. It does have this wizard now. I just use the same name as the server. This is a DNS forwarder. You could use Google if you want. I'm going to use the local router here. That'll be safe. And all this stuff is fine. It's going to just, by default, it's going to start downloading one image of this 1604 image. That's fine. And hit continue. Here's where you can, you have to have an SSH key. So we didn't put one in when we added the user, but I would prefer to import one. So we're going to upload it and then go out to the server and create one, just like we have in the past. Just create your own, bang through this if you don't want any passwords or anything. That's not the right window. And then just cat that key and paste it right in that wizard. Paste it right here. Import. Good to go. We got a key. Go to the dashboard. You're going to get auto discovery, so it's going to go around your whole network and try to find MAC addresses that you might like to add to your MaaS server. This isn't helpful for me because it's finding everything in the free world, and I don't want that. I don't want anything on my public interface. I'll take care of that. So this doesn't do anything for me. I'm actually going to disable it, so it doesn't really stop doing this. But hey, we can dream. So nodes, there's nothing here. Images probably already took care of themselves. It's synced, so yes, it has one image. I'm gonna save it again. It does give you some other options now to add other types of images. We're not going to mess with that right now. DNS, shouldn't have to change anything. We have an A type for our local card. That'll be fine. Zones, this is just for dividing up your MaaS servers into different clouds if you want. Subnets we'll come back to. Settings, we've already got the image that we need. No problem. MaaS configuration. This was added by that wizard that we just went through, so we don't have to edit that. See, there's nothing to edit here. This is already much easier. Don't worry about any of these. Root. There's our API key. We can go ahead and grab that. We'll need it in a minute. And so nothing to change here. See, already more simple. So subnets. This is quite a bit different. So I like to check all this stuff out. So let's just kind of walk through here. So we have two fabrics, what it's calling two fabrics. We've got the private and the public, just like we have in the past. The public, there's not much to do. So we're going to, I don't think it's under fabrics. No, there's nothing under fabrics. So I'm just going to go ahead and again and populate. You probably don't have to do this, but I'm going to populate this with the DNS server, which is the router. That's the only change you have to make in here. It doesn't give you any, I mean, this is your public fabric. There's nothing to do here. So go back to subnets, and let's take a look at the private subnet. So the gateway IP is the card still. So that's the interface, and so is the DNS server. Okay, you can make notes and all that good stuff. It's going to automatically reserve some IP ranges here in a second because we're going to enable DHCP. you have to enable, so that's good for here. You have to enable DHCP from the VLAN selection. Um, in my opinion, not the best place to put it, but hit the VLANs where it says untagged. It says it's disabled. Go over here, provide DHCP. You can set your dynamic range to whatever you want. I'm going to leave it default because that's most likely what you're going to do. We can make it larger in the future if we need to. Provide DHCP. We're good. So 1604 MaaS 2.0, it divides things up into controllers, rack controllers, and region controllers. The rack and region are both on this server, but you can divide them out. If you want to see what that looks like when you divide them out, take a look at the high availability videos we did on the MaaS install. That'll show you all that stuff. Take a look at the rack controller though. This is something I've noticed that will bite you occasionally. You see all this stuff isn't started? It's probably false. But I've come in here and like this will have a bang symbol on it where DHCP hasn't been enabled. You make sure these are all green. IPv6 DHCP, we're not doing that. Don't need to mess with that. Make sure these are all green before you continue. Okay, so that's it. That's pretty much all the MaaS setup that you need to do. So now, nodes. Wake on LAN is still not supported in 2.x. I don't like that, but maybe in the next version or whatever. These are still kind of like beta releases, but maybe in the following versions they'll put Wake on LAN in. I know there's a lot of questions about it and people wanting it back at me as well. But there's nothing stopping you from still using either Wake, right? So if you have the MAC addresses, go ahead and install either Wake, and at least you can simulate some sort of control over the nodes. So there's either Wake. But you remember either Wake. The reason why we use either Wake is because you can select which interface you want the magic packet to be sent, and now it's not the easy ETH1, it's this ENP3S1. So sudo either Wake -I, and then select your interface, ENP3S1, and then put in your MAC address of the server you would like to start enlisting. So we have those somewhere. Yep. We're going to enlist, right now, we're just going to enlist 2 nodes. So we'll fire a magic packet for this one, and we'll wait for it to come up while we're waiting. So here is one of the things that caught me on this install. I was still under the impression that when you did the Conjure-up, it was a lot like the landscape install in 1404, the old one. It only took one server and then it created containers on that server to house your services. That is not the case. Now you need 2. You need 2 servers. So you need a MaaS server and then 2 extra servers to install the Conjure-up, the landscape install. And the only information I have on that right now is the first one serves as a controller. And we'll have to explore and see what that actually means in the future. But you have to have a controller, and then it will call machine 0 on another machine and start installing your landscape and HA proxy and RabbitMQ. All the stuff that would have been on the original machine back in the old installs is going to be on this second machine now. I don't like it. It's going to be a stumbling block for a lot of you because you don't just have another server to burn, but that's the way it is right now. So this one's going to enlist. Here it comes. We'll change the name. And power type, we're going to do manual. And we'll hit commission. Ignore that MaaS DHCP thing because that's not true. It is serving DHCP. And wake it up again. So now we'll start commissioning. Let's get another node enlisting because we have to have 2. So let's just grab number 2. There, for this wake on LAN issue, there are hacks out there. You can add wake on LAN to this, and if you're interested in that, uh, I'll put together a video or send a link out there. It's pretty straightforward on how to get that installed. But the problem is we use either wake because we have two interfaces. Wake on LAN is only going to shoot that magic packet down the private interface, the main interface of that MaaS box. We actually have to shift it to a specific interface to get the magic packet to reach the right network and the right nodes. So it doesn't work for us. And even if we added it with the hack, it's not going to work here. So we'll wait for this one to commission and the next one to enlist. Okay, this one has just popped up. Change the name. Manual. Save changes. And we will commission it. And we'll fire another packet to wake it up. Okay, we've got both nodes. They're ready. They've been commissioned. They look good. So now we're ready to proceed with the Openstack install. So we have snap installed Conjure-up. We've done all this stuff that's up here. You can read through it. And we're ready to conjure up. This is you can bootstrap to a specific host name. We'll just let it pick one. That's no big deal. We'll walk through these screens in a second. So let's do it. Conjure up. This is just warning you that the picture's going to look weird if your screen's a different size. Just say yes, that's fine. There's a lot of different things you can conjure up. We want the very last one because we're going to do a landscape OpenStack install. So hit landscape. We're going to configure a new cloud. It already knows that MaaS is a cloud device and it's available. So hit MaaS. Hit put in your private interface of your MaaS server. Put in your API key. It might still be there. Let's see. Nope. I did some MAC addresses. It's fine. Let's go to root. Grab your API key. Add credentials. It's going to tell you what it's going to deploy. This is a little, again, this caught me. This is a little deceiving that it's going to use one unit. Well, I thought it was going to be on the same server. It is not. It's going to spin up an alternate server to deploy all this. So go ahead and deploy all 4 remaining applications. And here we go. So now, let's watch this here in kind of a side window, because there's not going to be a ton that's going to go on. And we'll watch MaaS in this other side. So MaaS is already trying to deploy the second node. Remember, this is manual power, so you either need to go down and hit the button or send in a magic packet. We're going to pull up another MaaS server. The timeouts on these are pretty lengthy, so you have a little time if you need to do stuff like this. So I can never remember the interface name, EMP3S1. So let's -I EMP3S1, and then we'll grab that MAC address again of the second one, and we'll shoot it a magic packet. Okay, now we should see this. This will eventually change to deployed, but as it starts deploying and getting ready to go, you'll see some messages change and things like that over here. So we'll just watch it for a minute. Okay, we're deployed, and now we're doing some other stuff, downloading some things. We'll wait a little longer. Okay, so Juju is done bootstrapping. I'm gonna maximize this just so you can see what it's doing. you're going to come to a screen where, like this, where it's installing. It's waiting on machine. And this is what caught me. It was just sitting here waiting forever. And then I realized it's waiting on a physical resource. So go back over to MaaS. See, it's trying to deploy that node. And since it's manual power, it's never going to get deployed. So let's grab the MAC address. And we'll turn that machine on and let it deploy. We'll keep watching. Okay, so the machine is deployed. We should see a few things start up. There's another thing you can do if you want to see where this thing's at instead of just seeing this waiting. You can GG status from another window. And you can see that it's actually, I mean, it's got a IP address assigned out there. It's pinning, it's allocating things, it's creating these LXC containers. So it is making progress. So that's another, just open another window, do a GG status. You can see it start doing some stuff. You can actually do, what is that? There's like a watch. Dash in maybe? Like 10? I think that'll do seconds. Yeah, so that will update your GG status every 10 seconds. So watch dash in. I think that's how you do it. We'll see if it updates. They'll repeat whatever command you put next to it every so many seconds. So now, since we're deployed over here, we can stop watching MaaS. We'll watch these two. Alright, so we're looking pretty good. Let's pop this open. We can Control-C that. Just do one more to get the awesome highlighted version. See all that started. Everything's looking good. Probably ignore that for a minute. And then pop this back open. We'll let this finish and then it will advise us on what to do next. Okay, everything went active, ready to go. Now we just need to enter some information here for the login piece of landscape. And we'll run. Okay, and here is the information to log in to the cloud. It gives you the IP address, tells you what your login and your password's going to be. You should be ready to go. The only thing that, so just to recap, you've seen it all. This is all the stuff that I have done to the server to get this to work. It wasn't much. Now, remember, I do have a route statement on this laptop that will get me to this network, the different network, the 10 dot network. That's not an OpenStack thing. That's allowing me to route traffic to this 150 address to be able to get to that 10 dot address. But that has nothing to do, that's not on the server. That's just a route statement. So let's go ahead and try to pop that open. Okay. We'll take the certificate since it's our server. And we'll log in with our email address and the password we picked. And here it is, OpenStack Autopilot. I only have those two machines commissioned right at the moment, so it's going to complain about not having enough machines. But we did it. It's been installed. The landscape install finally works for the 2.0 and the 16.04. It was very straightforward, pretty easy. So that's the end of this video, but I'm going to go and commission the nodes, and we'll start back here on the next video and just go through the install of the actual OpenStack piece one more time. Hopefully this one was useful, and kind of shows you how easy it was to do the Conjure-up pieces. I will catch you on the next video very shortly. Thanks for watching.